Well, good morning and welcome to our Best Defense Security Awareness Training. Before we begin, we do have a few housekeeping items that we do want to review, and we do appreciate you joining us again. Everyone's muted, so there's no background noise. There will be a Q&A window that's available for usage for any questions or comments that you may have. In addition to introducing our guest, I'll also serve as the moderator. There'll also be time available after the webinar that we'll ask some questions, and we'll either answer them during the course of the webinar or even set up a time to answer your specific questions. Contact information will be provided at the end of the webinar for you to get in touch with us at Lam Tech. In addition to our live webinar, we'll also provide a link to the recording should you want to review what you do learn today or want to share your knowledge with another person, whether it be in your company or a referral. Even want to show it to someone that you may want to refer that to again. Without further housekeeping items, we'll get officially started here today. Good morning. Again, I'm Doug Sokolowski, the account manager for Lam Tech. We welcome you and thank you for your time on today's webinar. For those that are unfamiliar with us, Lam Tech aligns IT solutions with your growth initiatives, and our overall goal is to take care of your technology so you can focus on your day-to-day business and really just to stop expanding those problems. Now, what do we offer? We offer things like managed services to maintain your security, help desk support, consulting, and data recovery along with backup services. Now, today's overall theme is looking at your overall network defense with a security awareness training. We'll hear from one of our experts in the field about just how to prevent cyber threats and how prevalent they are, how you can assist you and your staff to mitigate threats and promote confidence in your staff through security awareness training. In a moment, we'll be hearing from our channel success manager of Kaseya, and that is Katie Wallace. Katie assists with partners to think outside the box, really, when it comes to security as well as compliance. She has a passion for helping people, and ultimately she has a goal to align her partner's vision with software functionality as well as surface capabilities. Now, she assists all kinds of organizations, from one person to small businesses to large organizations, and we're pleased to have her back with us again. Again, it's Katie Wallace, and good morning to you. How are you today?
Good morning, Doug. I am doing well and excited to be a part of this presentation today. How are you?
Doing great. Excited to have you here. We know there's a lot going on, and unfortunately, the criminal activity, if you will, is still very prevalent out there, and that's why we have partners like yours to help us try and our best that we can to prevent that from getting into our business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give me one moment here. I am just getting my screen share up and running for the presentation here today. Now, I know we're here to talk about, overcoming your biggest security risk, and that is your employees. We're going to talk about the concept of security and awareness training. But before we get into the presentation, I want to wish everybody a happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month. That is what the month of October is here to promote, amongst some other topics that this month does represent. And security has been a hot topic for, goodness, probably the last year. You know, there's been a lot of changes to our work environments, and that's really led a lot of companies into looking at their own security services and just making sure that they're staying up to date with the constant change that, is kind of occurring in our work life. And realistically, the vast majority of today's threats require humans to activate them. And we're really going to be going through today, making sure that your team, knows what to do when they're faced with real threats that these cyber criminals are posing to our organizations. Now, before we get into that, we do want to talk a little bit about the threat landscape that we're looking at. How many times have you received a suspicious email that maybe you've won something? Maybe you've received an email at one point pointing towards a free Amazon gift card. Or maybe you've gotten an email from what looks like an executive at your organization. Maybe it's your CEO, maybe it's a CFO, and they're asking you to go out and buy gift cards. Maybe you've never gotten a request like this before in the past, and you're like, boy, this is funky, but it looks like it's coming from a legitimate person in our organization. These are all examples of phishing emails that we've been receiving. And I'll get into a brief story time here. in a previous role, I worked at an organization where a colleague of mine did receive an email that looked like it was coming from our CEO at the time, asking her to go out and buy, I think it was like $2,500 worth of Amazon gift cards for an upcoming trade show that we were going to be presenting at. And she's never received a request like this before, but it looked pretty urgent. And because it came from the CEO, what did she do? She went out to a local grocery store that was near our office and she bought the gift cards. And when she reached back out to the CEO, she had shared the numbers and everything for the cards to be in use. And when the CEO came back into the office that day, she had brought up to him that the gift cards were purchased. She sent him over the numbers that he had requested for, and he had no idea what she was talking about. And what was uncovered was that it was a cyber criminal that had spoofed the CEO's email address and that had asked her to go out and buy, those gift cards. And at that point in time, because the numbers were shared, we had to get the local authorities involved because there was nothing more that we could do in that scenario. Here's another classic phishing email. How many of you have received an email or seen the internet scams that it's a Nigerian prince who runs to reward you or share some of his vast fortune with you if you help him claim it? Now, again, we've all been using the internet for quite some time at this point, and we're probably no stranger to any of these phishing emails. Unfortunately, cyber threats are not going anywhere anytime soon, and in fact, they continue to evolve and become more and more sophisticated as time goes on. Hackers are constantly changing their tactics, their techniques, and their procedures to get more of our information at the end of the day. Unfortunately, the pandemic has also created a breeding ground for cybercrime as well. As of March 28th of last year, the number of cyber attacks related to the coronavirus grew from just a few hundred daily to over 5,000 in one day alone. Cyber attacks continued to rise to a point last year where on April 6th, the FBI released an official statement regarding the increase in phishing attacks. And this is the first time the FBI has released any sort of statement regarding phishing. So within the security community, this was big news that it was being put on the map by such a trusted organization. Overall, 71% of security professionals have reported an increase in security threats or attacks since the COVID-19 outbreak. However, it's important to remember that no company is too big or too small to qualify as attacker's next target. CNBC reports that small businesses also fall prey to hackers 43% of the time. Your organization is always going to be at risk, and unfortunately, your employees tend to be one of your biggest risks. For instance, did you know that 27% of employees clicked on a phishing email during a pen test for a security engineering firm? Apart from clicking on suspicious links, they've downloaded malicious files with email attachments and even corresponded with these attackers. They've also entered in their email addresses and passwords in these fake phishing emails and or fake websites that the fake phishing emails have led to. Only 30% of internet users in the US know what malware is, yet 50% of users have been a victim of identity theft. It's kind of a staggering statistic when you look at that. As a fun fact, Microsoft still remains the #1 spoof brand in phishing attacks. And just earlier this summer, there were several phishing emails that went around looking like they were coming from Teams, obviously a Microsoft brand, but in fact, it was cyber criminals trying to get your credentials so they could log into not only your Teams, but then gain access to your email as well. And with cyber attacks increasing exponentially each year, it's critical that companies ingrain a cyber-aware culture throughout their organization. People and not technology are key to providing an adequate level of security. Of course, technology does play a large role, but with the right technology, you also need to provide the right education to the folks that are utilizing it. And that's because hackers know that employees, unfortunately, are the weakest link in information security. and they actively work to exploit them through those phishing attacks and other, means of security incidences. As remote working becomes more of the normal, it has also resulted in the growing number of cyber threats for many organizations. In fact, 95% of cybersecurity professionals say that they are facing additional challenges with increased attacks and the new work from home demands. The sudden shift in circumstances has impacted the way that employees access business applications, and it really has increased the potential attack surface. We rely more so on, these internet platforms like Teams, obviously email, and even things like Slack and other communication channels to stay up to date with our coworkers now. And with that, we are using more digital platforms to share our information, files, and just data overall. As cyber criminals increase their efforts, awareness is really the most powerful weapon against these evolving threats and techniques. Scammers will be quick to take advantage of any lapse in security, and organizations should continue to empower and really educate their employees to remain vigilant. Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility, and with so many potential attack points, the key to improving security is to create a culture of cybersecurity awareness within your organization. You truly can have the best firewall in place. You can have multiple layers of security in place. But all it takes for your organization to fall victim to a ransomware attack or to have credentials shared out in a phishing email is just having your employees click on a bad link or go to a bad website that they think is a real website and enter in your company's information. And unfortunately, then with just a few clicks, your entire network can be affected at the end of the day. Identifying a phishing email or a fraudulent website has become increasingly difficult as cyber criminals have really honed in on their skills, and they use a range of socially engineering tactics to convince the recipients, who are us, to click on these malicious links or then to provide personal information. Again, today's phishing attacks are now becoming more targeted and sophisticated as ever before. With many cyber attacks becoming more sophisticated, making sure that your employees are aware of best practices when using a computer for work-related materials is essential. Any details given away or misuse of computers or genuine human error can be a massive blow to any business and lines of their security. Hackers may hold the business ransom for money, potentially, demanding cryptocurrency. When they get into your network, they can steal your private data, your company's data, or really get into your finances and, do what cyber criminals do best, and that's steal our information. Often, the human element is considered to be the weakest link by these cyber criminals. Again, even with good malware detection, encryption, two-factor authentication, if you are engaging in phishing emails, you're really putting your company at risk at the end of the day and bypassing all of the layers of security. A hacker can basically walk straight through the front door then of any of these systems, and if employee accidentally gives away any account information. Making sure that your employees are trained to their best of the ability to recognize these threats and to effectively use computers is a vital part of security software in today's day and age. Now, on the off chance that your workers are not prepared for a cyber attack, the unfortunate truth then is that your company is not either. Thus, a training program can really help raise the awareness and knowledge towards being more susceptible to any of these threats. Employees are human. They're honestly bound to make mistakes, and security training can help them avoid things like potential use of weak passwords, improper data storage. When it comes to sharing your information, what are the proper devices and channels to be doing that on? Of course, training for things like how to identify a phishing email. When it comes to phishing emails, what are those things that we really need to look out for outside of just the sending address themselves? Things like generic salutations or creating a false sense of urgency so you take action then and there and not push it off and, get ingrained in other things in your day. Security and awareness training We'll also help cover things like connecting to unsecure networks. That's really something a lot of folks don't think about. Now, with remote work coming into play, folks are working from different locations. Of course, everybody has a home office, it seems like, in today's day and age, but potentially you go to a local coffee shop, or maybe you're somebody that's out on the road. And if you're connecting to different Wi-Fis, what are some things that you want to be aware of? Because when you're utilizing somebody else's Wi-Fi, there could be threats that are lurking on that network. And again, you don't want your company to fall victim to a security incident by doing so. Things like security and awareness training will also cover, downloading malicious attachments. This is probably one of the biggest threats that we've seen come out of the coronavirus pandemic, is with phishing emails. In the past, a lot of them linked out to fraudulent websites to get you to share your credentials. But with the increase in phishing attacks, we've now seen cyber criminals embedding attachments, asking you to open up invoices or asking you to look over a new policy and procedure that your organization has created. And unfortunately, if you go to click on those links, it's not the attachment that's living behind there. It's a virus or something like malware waiting to affect those computers and get through to all the information that could be living on your PC. Now, oftentimes when we think about security and our budgets are compiled, the primary focus is on technology and software. But there's one significant area of cybersecurity budgeting that can immensely affect the organization, yet is regularly neglected, and that is the employee end of things. When employees have the best cybersecurity awareness training, they are more likely to promptly, trace potential threats and report any incoming incidents. Operational disruptions with the organization can then be prevented, because there is nothing worse than going through a security incident, because outside of facing potential fines and or disruptions to your workday, there's a lot of downtime that can then be accrued. And with IT security teams, if they're aware, they can quarantine these threats before they escalate, which would, evidently cause less damage to the organization overall. But all of this is made possible when everybody works in a coordinated way, which happens when there is enough cybersecurity awareness training. Compliance laws like HIPAA and PCI have had requirements that emphasize employee trainings. And that's because they understand the significance of getting each employee within an organization trained, and not simply just, let's say, your folks that are more aware of IT or those folks that are more ingrained in the operations overall. And this includes guaranteeing that all employees are completely prepared for any sort of obligations that they hold with the company's data. Also, I see a lot of organizations talking to their insurance brokers about cybersecurity insurance policies. And when it comes to signing on with a cyber insurance policy, something to consider is within the actual policy itself, there are certain steps of due care that these policy providers want to see that you're taking towards your own security. And a lot of the policies want to see security and awareness training being provided to employees. And this is crucial because we all know when it comes to insurance, their favorite thing to do is not provide the payout at the end of the day. So ensuring that you're taking the proper steps up front helps more so prepare you if you do need to fall back on that policy at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to improving your own security culture, I want to stress that a culture of blame and fear when it comes to security and end users, it's not the route to go. Human error, it's something that's natural and it's unavoidable. You want to make sure that your employees are comfortable with you if they do click on a bad link, or if they have clicked on a malicious website or seen unusual activity. And they need to be comfortable going to you because you need to know about this before it really is too late at the end of the day. Companies should truly empower their end users with a culture of personal responsibility so that they treat data security in the same way that they approach other company policies, potentially due to health and safety. It's very important that your training is interesting at the end of the day. The more interesting that your cybersecurity awareness training is, the more employees will retain the information and apply it. Everyone in your business, I always say it should be top down, from the CEO down to everybody else at the organization needs to be participating in these trainings. And you need to think about what you would then want to sit through. I hate to say it, but nobody wants to sit through something that is boring and uninformative. A long, boring annual meeting on cybersecurity is probably far down on most folks' lists of their favorite activities or things that they want to sit through at the end of the day. To keep people engaged, training and awareness sessions need to be short in duration and really ongoing throughout the year, because threats don't just happen once a year. Threats are ongoing and they catch you off guard at the moment that you least expect them to. There truly is a positive correlation to the amount of training received and the effectiveness of the training at minimizing cyber threats. You know, security protocols should come second in nature, and employees who participate in training and find it useful may even adopt cybersecurity practices for their own personal lives. And I will say this is huge, because I know we did a webinar earlier in the year about digital risk, and one of the biggest risks that folks face are with their passwords. Because we have so many accounts that we have to keep track of, something that folks naturally do in their work life and in their personal life is reuse passwords or similar passwords amongst multiple accounts. Well, with the increase in cyber attacks, the more times that you reuse the password, the more times you're giving a cyber criminal the chance to have access to not just one of your logins, but multiple logins of yours and the data that lives behind them. So again, best practices in work life can definitely trickle into your personal life and really help you avoid identity theft or, things that can cause a large disruption in your life overall. Now, when it comes to cybersecurity awareness training, our preventative solution, it really has three components that it is comprised of. We have the interactive security training portion of things. We have simulated phishing campaigns and reporting. All of these features are included to provide the very best experience as possible. Our training courses are comprised of short, easy to understand, and non-technical videos, followed by a true-false questionnaire, which we'll get into. And the reports are really comprehensive, showing all of the different actions that folks are taking with, either the training or the simulated phishing emails that are going out. With our platform, there are over 60 videos and lessons deployed to help train employees at an organization. Topics include lessons like password management, email phishing, of course, proper internet connection protocols, and the list really goes on. We have a course, it's a 3-part course that talks about mobile security. If you're using Teams on your phone or your email on your phone and you are connecting from unsecured Wi-Fi, what does that look like? What are some things that we need to avoid? Almost any area of weakness that you can think of, there's a training for it. So I know we've talked a lot about the phishing email side of things, but there are a lot of different threats that we are faced with using the internet. So it's important that your training program does encompass all of those topics. As stated before, we understand the importance of training that is interactive and engaging. We utilize videos and quizzes rather than kind of that mundane pen and paper method or that PowerPoint method on a yearly presentation that your employees would have to sit through. And this is to honestly help your employees pay attention, retain information, and enjoy the process at the end of the day. And finally, we know that regular training over a long period of time is the best way to help your employees succeed. So training can be deployed on demand as often as needed or on a set schedule, something like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or even on a quarterly basis. We can help suggest a time frame, that works best for your company once we've identified your vulnerabilities, are things that you really want to improve on in your own security culture overall. And I will say one nice thing about our security and awareness training videos, outside of them being short, sweet, and non-technical, they're all animated clips. So even if there is somebody at your organization that, they're not really familiar with security overall, if this is their first taste of training, they should be able to ingest this information in a way where it's going to make sense to them at the end of the day. And all of the videos are under 10 minutes. So it's not like you would be asking an employee to take 30 minutes out of their day. Potentially, they're looking at other screens and doing things while the videos are playing. They're short and sweet enough where somebody can get through it quickly, ingest the proper information that they need, and move on with their day with minimal disruptions. Now, the second portion of our program is the simulated phishing campaigns. And this is a fun portion of the program. These simulated phishing campaigns they're not meant to show you or call any of your employees out, but what we want to do with these is to see your vulnerabilities. Typically, we first launch a series of what we refer to as simulated phishing campaigns. And these come in the form of an email that look like real phishing emails. So our team creates our phishing emails based off of things that we see plaguing the community. And these emails look convincingly real. So we can really see what employees are falling for the bait. And again, this isn't meant to shine the spotlight on anybody in particular, but more so to see what you would do when a real phishing email comes through. We start by sending the phishing email because, it really is the most effective method for cyber criminals to steal the credentials. And with these, these campaigns are delivered in increments to keep employees from receiving the same email all at once, which can result in a lack of effectiveness if your employees, inform one another about an email that they have received that maybe looks a little bit suspicious. And we truly, again, do this just to see where those gaps could be living in your, cybersecurity awareness culture. And hate to pick on these individuals, and I do apologize if there are any CFOs or heads of human resources on these calls. Your departments typically are plagued with a lot of phishing emails because cyber criminals know that you hold a lot of sensitive data for an organization. Folks that handle financial information seem to be plagued the most with these emails. And it really is important to see how your financial team would be engaging with the emails. Potentially they receive an email asking them to wire money to what looks like a trusted source or somebody you've worked with before, but maybe there's just one routing number that's off, or maybe there's just a couple little things about the email that would indicate it's a phishing email. But it's important to see, what attachments are clicked on. If somebody does visit a link that's embedded in that email, how many times they click on it. If they click on the link and they're redirected to a landing page asking for information, are they filling out the landing page itself to share that sensitive data with a cyber criminal that could lead to other systems of yours, getting infiltrated? And that really leads us kind of to the analytics and the reporting portion of this software. It really is important to see the progress of your workforce from a bird's eye view. With reports, you can pinpoint any employees that need additional training. In all honesty, if you do see employees falling for the phishing emails, it's important to not just train those employees, but I say train everybody overall. With the cyber criminals changing up their methods, with things becoming more sophisticated, it's imperative that everybody at the organization does go through trainings, just so they're aware of the threats that they could be facing at the end of the day. With the reports and analytics, it's important to see the progress that your whole business and is truly making at the end of the day. I think it's really cool when you implement something like security and awareness training. Your first couple campaigns, you typically see some interesting data that comes from them, but then you compare the next quarter's campaigns to your previous quarter, and you really can see the value in having that cybersecurity awareness culture at your organization, because you start to see the engagement in the phishing simulation emails drop. And it's imperative, again, that this happens on an ongoing basis because of the way that the cyber threats are constantly evolving and changing. And again, having that bird's eye view is truly important at the end of the day, because if you are up against any sort of compliance regulation, have that cybersecurity insurance, and/or you're just faced with a lot of phishing emails at the end of the day, and you want to prevent, cyber attacks from plaguing your organization, it's good to see the reports and how your employees are handling those scenarios that they're put into. And we truly do think in today's cybersecurity landscape that investing in security awareness training is no longer an option, but it's really necessary, because phishing emails are plaguing one-man shops up to Fortune 500 organizations. The consequences of human error are too significant to ignore, and you want to cover all of your bases. And again, making sure that your employees are comfortable if they do click on a bad link or a malicious link to come to you and tell you before it's too late for your organization. Shoring up your defenses against security breaches begins with educating your employees on recognizing the warning signs of these malicious attacks. An effective staff awareness program should be compliant with the way people work, rather than creating rules that hinder employees' abilities to get their jobs done at the end of the day. The objective is to support them in obtaining the skills and knowledge required to do their job, and knowing when they need to, raise any concerns on an abundance of phishing emails they received, or again, accidentally engaging with one of them at the end of the day. It's best to create the culture ahead of time versus having to be reactive when that scenario hits your organization. Now, with all of that fun stuff, I am going to flip things back over to Doug here. Just give me one moment.
All right, Katie, well, while you're getting that moment there, do appreciate lots of information there, and some of those, I think it's really neat just to see all the different things that people can do. From my standpoint, I sit next to the techs, and I think it's awesome actually when we have our clients that have these tests, they'll actually call in and say, hey, I got this email, and have us look at it, with them, and then we're able to identify whether it's a legit email or not, or even just part of the test. But part of the test is you just passed it because you just called in to ask what the issue was. And I know George sees a lot more than I do, and I know he's listening in here, so he may chime in a little bit while we're waiting for you to get all reset there.
Yeah, one of the things that 5 or 6 years ago, starting off with Katie brought up the whole scam of, hey, I had this money in my account but I can't access it. Can you help me access it in the Nigerian prince scenario? But everybody's in tune for that because they hear all these stories. But everything is changing, and what has the training that you've done previous years has to change, and it has to go with the times. And the new threats out there are more than just trying to collect the funds or the Apple cards or the Amazon cards. It's data, it's sensitive information, and it's your account list. And a good example lately is having a business email compromise, where you have leadership or individuals in HR that do get compromised, and those emails get sent out not just to internal folks but external. You have partners that you work with, you have clients that you work with that they're getting that, and it can spread like wildfire. And if there's you fall for just one incident, and then it just spreads. And not just to your organization, but everybody else. And everybody has gotten to the point where they've received a weird email from a partner that, this doesn't really look right. And of course, you're responding back, and then you start realizing, oh, yeah, this person has been compromised. So So we see that a lot. And, just like Katie was bringing up about, COVID, working from home, people still want to be able to work. They still want to be able to help their clients. They want to help their employees. And so they're eager to help in any way possible. And it creates where they will click on a link. Oh, somebody has shared a document with me. Somebody shared a Dropbox document. I click on my credentials to put in there to view it. And then now they have your credentials, not only for Dropbox, but if that's a shared password, then they can start trying to access other systems that you have. So things change, they change rapidly. And the important part of this training subscription is these training videos change with the times. So, something that was 3 years ago might be totally different than it is today, and they constantly change. And you need to test your employees on those changes as well.
No, is Katie back with us?
Yeah, I am still here.
So
I know just this weekend is a classic example, something that happened with me, and it just goes to show how much you actually are testing yourself as well. Is I had an email come from a friend of mine, but it was from an email address that I was unfamiliar with. And I always say, one of your best practices is when in doubt, give a call to that person just to make sure that it was something that you had sent. That collaboration could stop a lot. Ended up being, in this case, it was something she legitimately sent, but the fact that you're thinking about it is, I think, an important part of that process.
Yeah, I think definitely awareness is probably one of our most important steps to take, just being aware.
Again, I'm giving you some time here to come up with any questions. So if you have any questions for Katie, George, or myself, we'll be glad to answer those. We do have the Q&A section that's open to you here at this time. So feel free to utilize that. If not, I guess we can wrap things up here this morning. So, but Katie, we do appreciate your time. It looks like surprisingly no questions here today, but if you're thinking about them, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be glad to maybe pass that along to Katie and get a response as well of how we would do that here with Lam Tech. But we do appreciate your time to learn more about your security awareness training. Again, if you are a current client, you want to see what you learned today pertains to your agreement, feel free to call us after the webinar. If you're wanting to learn more about Lam Tech and our offerings, you can also call me direct, 660-851-7342, and also learn even more at lamtech.com. Again, we appreciate your time and thank Katie for hers and George as well. And we hope that you have a fantastic day.